Hi, Genies. It's Fisher. Before we get started, just a quick thank you for getting Extreme Genes to where it is today. We're on radio stations all over America, and our podcast is growing exponentially. I'm often asked, what can I do to support Extreme Genes? Well, that's easy. Become a part of our Extreme Genes Facebook community and like our page. Share the podcast with your friends. Follow us on Twitter. And most importantly, support our sponsors through links on our website. They're the best in the business. Thanks again. Now let's get on to this week's podcast.
Yeah, I don't think Mother knew about this.
Uncle Marvin was strangled by his own beard.
Yep, you never saw it coming.
And welcome to another spine-tingling edition of Extreme Genes, America's family history show, and extremegenes.com. I am Fisher, your radio root sleuth, on the program where we shake your family tree and watch the nuts fall out. And this week on the show, very excited to have Katie Barnes from legacytree.com. She's going to be on to talk about land and court records, and she has this incredible story from down south in the 1820s, all from the land and court records. She's going to tell you how you can find stories like this as well. That's coming up in about 8 minutes. And then later in the show, we're going to talk to an Arizona man who discovered, shall we say, a somewhat frightening fact about his birth father. How did he find it? What's the story? You're going to catch it later in the show. But right now, let's check in with our good friend David Allen Lambert from the New England Historic Genealogical Society and AmericanAncestors.org. He is the chief genealogist. David is in Florida at the NGS conference, the National Genealogical Society. How are you, David?
Hey, Fish. Yeah, I'm here live in the vendor hall at NGS down here in sunny Fort Lauderdale, Florida, where people are actually going through the booths and going into lectures, not sunning themselves on the lovely beaches of Fort Lauderdale. So spring break for genealogists is a total different game.
Gotcha.
Well, you know, some exciting things happening here, and I get a shout out to two longtime friends that have received the Presidential Citation from NGS for unusual contribution in the field of genealogy, and it's kind of a 20th anniversary. Both Cyndi Ingle, your listeners may know of CindysList.com. It's sort of like the one-stop shopping for finding anything on the internet on genealogy.
All the sources for anything you're looking for. It's a great place, Cindy's List.
Absolutely. And Dick Eastman, many of your listeners may know, Dick has been a facet in the genealogical crown, if you will, with his Eastman online genealogical newsletter. And Dick also received the award. So my congratulations to my two friends on their 20th anniversary and this wonderful citation. I wanted to share something with you that genealogy can sometimes be scary. I always said that I wanted to have in my grave the William Shakespeare curse. Cursed be the one who moves my bones, and blessed be the man who leaves them alone. You know, that's something along that line.
Yeah.
Well, a 2,400-year-old grave was found in Athens, Greece, with curses in it. Someone wasn't happy with a few tavern keepers in Athens because it basically was targeting 4 different husbands and wife tavern keepers in Athens, Greece, 2,400 years ago. And one of the curses is called a dog's ear curse. And it goes something like this. Cast your hate upon Fangora and Demeteris into their tavern and property and their possessions. I will bind my enemy Demeteris and Fangora in blood and ashes with all the dead.
Wow.
Sounds like something out of a, Christopher Lee line in a movie from the 70s, doesn't it?
And it's so far back, you got to think that there are some people listening right now who might be descended from the person who left that curse.
It's absolutely true. If you want to leave something interesting in the casket with you, here's an idea. That isn't my tech tip, by the way, but we'll give you one in a minute. So there's a new company in Florida called TSO Life, and they're a storytelling company which you can get on and create a timeline and really tell your own story. You can put connection with Google Maps, voiceover, video, whatever the case might be. And I had a lovely talk with David Sawyer, who's originally from my home state of Massachusetts. Massachusetts, down here in Florida, and it's something new and exciting, and they'll be hopefully at Roots Tech next year. So that's great. Hopefully we can have a conversation with them at some point. Other exciting news includes a new book for your New York City researchers that are listening. The New York Genealogical and Biographical Records Society is coming out with a book very shortly called The New York City Municipal Archives. And as you know, New York City records can be tough. I know you have a personal connection with the good old city of New York yourself, don't you, Fish?
Yes, and I was in the archives just last year, and it's fantastic.
So this guide is supposed to help you with one-stop shopping, know what you need to get. It's kind of like having a grocery list before you actually go to the archives. So that's going to be a wonderful thing. The other exciting news is from Bruce from Roots Magic. If you have Roots Magic 7, you already know that you can use other data mining searches that will go in for your Roots Magic, go onto the internet and find matches for you in databases across the internet. He's got a new connection that's going to be released, so stay tuned for that. The other exciting news from NGS is to meet our Extreme Genes listeners, people like Danny and Ken and Jennifer, who come up and said they love the show so much. I mean, it's so nice to actually put faces behind the names, as you well know, Fish. It's great stuff.
There are great genies out there.
There are definitely great genies out there. MyHeritage has released, as of last month, their book matches, where they've taken over 400,000 genealogy and local history books, and it's better OCR, which you know is optical character recognition.
Right.
It reads the text, searchable, but they're doing proximity searches, which will allow you to get certain data like a name and a birth date. It will go and it will give it as part of your smart matches and MyHeritage. So that's exciting news too. Technology just gets better and better. It's a wonderful database and another way of utilizing your research. Once you plug it in, they do the work for you. So the other thing I want to say is my personal tech tip is charity starts at home. You can talk about your ancestors, but why not talk about yourself? Sit down in front of a digital recorder, a video camera, have somebody interview you, but you pick the questions. As a genealogist, what would you ask your great-great-great-great-grandparents? And put yourself in the position now for the future. So interview yourself. And as always, NEHGS has guest user databases for you to try out. So if you go to AmericanAncestors.org, I would say I can tell you that it's great to be able to use the internet on the beach, and I'm going to try that later today from sunny Fort Lauderdale.
Sounds like a plan, David. And of course, you can follow David Allen Lambert at DL Genealogist on Twitter. All right, David, thanks so much. I've been seeing, by the way, a lot of Facebook pictures of you having way too much fun at this NGS conference in Florida. So be careful. And by the way, make sure you keep your trunks all the way up.
I plan on making sure that stays put all week long.
And
wish you were here, my friend. Talk to you soon.
I do too. And coming up next, we're going to talk to Katie Barnes from LegacyTree.com. She's going to tell you about land and court records and some of the incredible stories that you can find from it and how she actually used that to break down one of her clients' brick walls. She'll have a great story from the South for you. From the 1820s. This is good stuff coming up in 3 minutes on Extreme Genes, America's Family History Show.
Legacy Tree Genealogists is a proud sponsor of Extreme Genes. Based in Salt Lake City, Utah, near the world's largest family history library, we've been working with genealogists all over the globe since 2004 to track down records, find your ancestors, and the stories that bring your legacy to life. We also analyze DNA test results, help you join lineage societies, and find missing cousins or heirs to property. Legacy Tree is the recommended research partner of MyHeritage.com and is the world's highest client-rated genealogy firm. Call us toll-free at 1-800-818-1476. Call now or register online to get a free estimate. Learn from our free genealogy tips on our blog at legacytree.com/blog. Even experienced researchers can benefit from our proven and experienced staff of specialists who can bring new approaches to old problems. Legacy Tree Genealogists. We do the research. You enjoy the discoveries. legacytree.com.
Well, Genies, my personal family history researcher who sends me new information day and night has sent me some incredible new records and newspaper stories lately. Hi, it's Fisher, and the name of that researcher, by the way, is myheritage.com. It's the hardest working service in genealogy, looking for records of your family 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Yes, even while you're sleeping. How does it work? MyHeritage uses hundreds of algorithms to match your ancestors to over 5 billion records from around the world, and with 97% accuracy. That means no more wasting time figuring out whether or not a match really is a match. I hear from listeners all the time who are shocked with how much information is accurately found and then passed along. And now MyHeritage will translate your ancestors' names into English or any other language you like from foreign records. In fact, it works with over 40 languages. No one else does this. Whether you're a beginner or seasoned researcher, you need myheritage.com.
Extreme Genes is sponsored in part by 23andme.com, a personalized genetic service that helps you understand what your 23 pairs of chromosomes, your DNA, say about you. 23andme.com gives you a snapshot view of your DNA with more than 60 detailed reports on your health, traits, and ancestry, plus tools to explore and compare your DNA with family and friends. 23andme.com is the first and only genetic service available directly to you that includes reports that meet FDA standards. Here's how it works. Order your DNA kit from 23andme.com. Provide your saliva sample from home and mail it back to a CLIA-certified lab. Then you'll be notified when your reports are ready online. You'll also receive ongoing reports as new genetic discoveries are made and as 23andme.com is able to clear new reports through the FDA. See why more than 1 million people are experiencing their genetics with 23andme.com. Order your DNA kit today at 23andme.com.
Hey, welcome back to America's Family History Show, Extreme Genes and ExtremeGenes.com. It is Fisher here, your radio root sleuth. And, you know, we talk about brick walls a lot in family history. That's the end of the line, and all of us have them. It's a really challenging thing to try to figure out exactly how to get around some of those things. And that's why we're talking to Katie Barnes today. She's a researcher with LegacyTree.com. And Katie, I love what you've written here in your blog about using court records and land records to break open some of these family lines. And you've got a great case here that goes back 200 years.
Yeah, this is definitely a prime example of what we're going to be talking about today.
Give us a little sample of this thing. Now, it takes place in the South.
It does. It's in Southampton County, Virginia. This was my client's Boykin family. And one of the interesting things about it that I should say right off the bat is that Southampton County, Virginia is a little bit unique in that all of its court records are actually digitized online. And if you do much research in the South, you'll know that's incredibly rare.
Yes.
So this was a unique case in which a donor went to Southampton County's courthouse in, I think it was 2008, and basically volunteered to digitize their entire collections. And so they've made it free online at BrantleyAssociation.com. So I wanted to put in a plug there and give a shout-out thanking all those generous donors out there that make it easier on the rest of us, for sure.
Boy, no doubt. And, you know, volunteers make such a difference in our lives, and we don't even know who these people are.
Absolutely, yeah. I think that was a key factor in some of the success, although being able to find these records is also definitely doable via the Family History Library and microfilm collections and, you know, just the old-fashioned going to the courthouse in general.
Sure.
So I can jump into the case a little bit. This takes place in the early 19th century in, like I said, Southampton County, Virginia. William T. Boykin, he had married, to set the stage a little bit, he had married this young woman named Peggy Baisden in 1816, and she was the only child of her father, Samuel Baisden. So as a wedding present to his daughter, engagement present, rather, Samuel had drafted a deed, had the local JP, Justice of the Peace, draft her a deed for 100 acres of land that he owned and lived on at the time. However, after a little bit of time, Samuel, for reasons unknown, changed his mind about this deed and decided he didn't want to give it to his daughter and new son-in-law after all. However, quite literally, the deed was done, and so he actually went to the Justice of the Peace to have the deed given back. The JP said, you know, no dice. It's a legal transaction. It's done. And so Samuel resorted to threatening his new son-in-law with bodily harm.
Ooh.
Yeah. That went on for several years. Pretty terrifying, I'm sure.
Was this in the court records that he was threatening?
Yes. So one of the key elements of these court records were depositions, including the original Justice of the Peace, William's brother, and a couple other individuals who were all testifying that this had been going on for several years. Eventually, William and Peggy had had a couple kids, and they were starting to really get freaked out, obviously, about William's father-in-law doing these things, and so he decided to give in, and he gave the deed back. On one condition, though. Though William would relinquish his claim on the land, he made his father-in-law promise that when the father-in-law, Samuel Bazin, died, he would leave the land to William and Peggy's son, Samuel Boykin Jr. Sorry, some of these names are...
No, this sounds like that. This sounds like a great solution, right? A good compromise.
It sounded that way, and so witnesses say, according to the depositions, that Samuel Bazin said, okay, that's fine, and he threw the original deed in the fire and drafted up a new one that was in agreement with the accord that they had just struck. But this went down because... This court case later went down because Samuel, again, proved not to be a man of his word. He died in 1824, so about 8 years later, after having remarried. And then, around the same time, his daughter, Peggy, who was William Boykin's wife, also died. When Samuel Bazin died, it was determined from his will that he had not left the land in question to his grandson, Samuel Boykin Jr. He had left it to one of his new children from his second marriage.
Uh-oh.
That occurred, since then. So, William Boykin sued his stepmother-in-law, on behalf of his deceased wife's child.
Wow. Gets complicated, doesn't it?
It does. And so that's kind of just some of the meat of the story. That didn't actually help break through the brick wall, but the depositions were what ultimately solved this case.
Yeah, but the stories are just so incredible. I mean, even if you didn't have a brick wall breakthrough, those stories alone were fabulous. They're gold.
Oh, absolutely. And everyone loves to find stories like this, even when they determine that maybe their ancestors weren't necessarily the upstanding people we would all hope they were. It can still be very entertaining. So, what we needed to do now, the ultimate goal had been to determine the father of William Boykin.
Right.
So this flash was just some of the interesting stories we found along the way. But the interesting thing was, one of the depositions was with the original Justice of the Peace, whose name was Silas Summerall. He testified that he had been present at the engagement party of William Boykin and Peggy Bazin at the home of a man named Britton Boykin. And so that kind of gave pause. Who is this man? They share the same surname.
Aha.
Maybe they're related. Well, earlier in the research, we had determined that William Boykin was witness at the wedding of a man named Solomon Boykin in about 1816 as well. And so when you start finding all these people with similar surnames, or the same surname rather, you start really paying attention and trying to connect the dots, especially in a small community in the South.
Sure.
This eventually led, after we found the mention of both Solomon Boykin, who was also a deponent in the case, and Britton Boykin, this led us on a search to try to find the will of Britton Boykin. As you know, wills usually will name heirs, and sometimes in the South, and especially pre-1850s and colonial South and the rest of the United States, those can be some of the only records out there that state relationships directly, besides land records. But it can be very rare to find those smoking gun pieces of evidence, I suppose. So we found the will of Britton Boykin, who died in 1824, and sure enough, it named his two sons, William and Solomon Boykin. And so that tied everything up just perfectly. We determined all this kind of juicy history about William Boykin's family and his in-laws and the importance of land in that society, but we also used those court and land records to be able to tie up these loose ends and determine how exactly everyone was related. Now,
answer this for me, because I'm sure people are wondering, why didn't your client actually look for the will in the first place, or was that from a different part of the state?
Oh, the will of Britton Boykin?
Yes.
That wasn't done at first because we weren't sure who all the candidates were. We were just trying to find evidence on William himself. The Boykins were a very prolific family in Southampton County, and so we were trying to just gather as much information about William at first to see if that would give us any clues, rather than just starting in the will books, and going through every Boykin individual to begin with.
Right, so there are just so many of them in that area, though that makes a big difference, and that explains that. Yeah, let's talk a little about these court records and the land records. They're really important in the South, not nearly as essential, I think, in the North, where there are a lot more church records that have survived, don't you think?
Oh, definitely, yeah. We always talk about why the South is difficult, and that lack of vital and church records is an enormous part of it. The South was a lot more isolated and rural, and so the priests, if you were Catholic, for example, in Louisiana, but the priests, there were so few of them that they would only be able to get around every so often, so there's fewer church records. In addition, Southerners tended to be less likely to be a member of a church that kept as neat and consistent records. They tended to be more Protestant, evangelical, Methodist, Baptist, and such, where the Catholics and Congregationalists and Lutherans tended to have established record-keeping practices. That was not the case in the churches that a lot of Southerners belonged to.
And then there was the loss, of course, through the Civil War with so many places burning.
Absolutely, and that is especially the case in places heaviest hit with combat. You know, Georgia is one of those states that can be very difficult. Virginia, of course. Southampton County, as I've been discussing here in Virginia, actually was a little bit more fortunate. It was a little bit out of the way of a lot of the typical Civil War combat. So they didn't suffer nearly as much record loss as some other Virginia counties did.
So, Katie, if somebody is looking to get into court records in the South, where are the jurisdictions? Where can these records be found? You mentioned that these in Virginia are actually online, but that's kind of rare. Where can people go?
Court records are often underused in genealogical research because they are a little bit harder to access sometimes. They're found at the county level. A lot of the times they've been digitized by Family Search, and you can get them on microfilm if you have access to the Family History Library in Salt Lake City, or you can order the films to your local Family Search centers. So microfilm is one great resource. In some cases, not all of the records will be digitized, and you might have to either visit the courthouse in person, send a researcher to the courthouse, send a mail-in request, maybe with a fee for the local courthouse employees to make those searches for you. And it can be a little bit time-consuming, and they're not always indexed. Actually, a lot of the time they're not indexed, and they're not always the easiest records to get through and find what you're looking for. So they take a little bit of patience, but they're definitely well worth the effort.
Boy, no doubt.
I'm not sure I could have solved this case without the court records.
Oh, there's no doubt. And it can be a little pricey, too. I mean, sometimes they'll charge you, 15, 20 cents a page, and then you can get dozens and dozens of pages, and it can add up pretty fast. But on the whole, the value of them is just incredible. And I've solved several brick walls in my family's lines using court records, too. So a great little lesson there, Katie, and a great story. I appreciate it so much.
You're welcome. And we really enjoy doing work like this. It's my bread and butter, and it's a lot of fun.
There you go. Katie Barnes from LegacyTree.com talking about how to break down brick walls with court records and land records. Thanks so much.
You're welcome.
And coming up next, we're going to talk to a man from Arizona who wanted to find his birth parents. He did. And a story that he had no idea was waiting for him. Wait till you hear what he found and how he found it next in 3 minutes on Extreme Genes.
Scientific studies have proven that youth who know even a little bit about their family history perform better academically and have a greater sense of personal confidence and stability. Genealogy is its own incredible superpower that arms our children with super strength. But how do you get your child or grandchild interested in studying their family history? That kind of stuff is just for grandmas, right? Not anymore. ZapTheGrandmaGap.com leaps the generation gap in a single bound. Author Janet Hovorka provides you with useful and timely advice on helping the young people in your life become engaged in their own family history. Janet has an entire collection of books to inspire the young and the young at heart in fun, interactive ways. She also offers creative tips and advice on her blog and in her free weekly newsletter. Stop by ZapTheGrandmaGap.com today to sign up for Janet's free email newsletter with 52 weeks of easy tips, free downloads, and order your set of resource books and workbooks. Looking for an easy way to show off your family history and share it with your family? Family Chart Masters offers beautiful custom pedigree art pieces and inexpensive family reunion draft charts in any design or size that fits your needs. With a free consultation at FamilyChartMasters.com, you can get started creating a new family masterpiece. Family Chart Masters has over 11 years of experience in creating and printing family charts. They can print any style of genealogy chart from any genealogy file and can create exactly what you're looking for. You'll work with a specialized and talented consultant whose goal is to make you happy. Decorative charts make fantastic gifts for all occasions. And with Family Chart Masters' option of ordering duplicate charts at half price along with your original purchase at full price, you can afford to give a family heirloom to each member of your family. Contact Family Chart Masters today at FamilyChartMasters.com for your free consultation. Family Chart Masters will give the greatest care to your family history.
And welcome back to America's Family History Show, Extreme Genes and ExtremeGenes.com. It is Fisher here, your radio root sleuth. And, you know, this whole idea of finding out who you are is so universal in all of us, but never more so than for people who have gone through adoption. And so many people we've had on the show have talked about that desire to know about the birth family. And sometimes it turns out great. In fact, I would say most of the time it turns out fabulously for the adoptee to discover their birth family. But once in a while, you find some surprises and things don't turn out that well. I've helped some people where I've said, look, I've got a phone number, but once you open this door, you can never close it again. Are you prepared for what might happen? And some people will say yes, some people will say no, and kind of go from there. And on the phone with me right now is a man in Phoenix who listens to us on KTAR 92.3 FM, Grant Ringuet. And Grant, you've been through this process. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you, sir.
You were adopted at birth, I assume, right?
I was adopted at birth, yes. I was born in Chicago, Cook County, Illinois in 1958. And I kind of knew about 12 or 13 something wasn't right. I do have an adopted sister and an adopted brother, and we all had different mannerisms. It just, I don't know. But when I turned 18, my father gave me my original adoption papers, which gave me my biological last name, Tomanek.
Was this the first you knew for sure that you'd been adopted?
I mean, I kind of knew, but my parents were very nice. And they let me know that, yes, you are adopted. But they really wouldn't give me the record until I was 18 years old.
And so you found out your birth name was what?
My biological last name was Tomanek.
Tomanek. And so it's an unusual name. Hey, it's not Smith, right?
No.
And so you wanted to go to work finding out if you could locate your birth parents.
Right. I was about, my mid-20s when I really decided to, think about it. So I happened to be in a hotel in Chicago on business, and I looked in a White Pages phone book, which they had back then. They didn't have internet.
Sure.
Sure enough, there were 4 names, Tomanek.
And so what did you do with that?
I found what I thought was my parents' name in the phone book. There was only 4 listings for Tomanek in the phone book. I called the one that I thought was my parents, and I reached what I thought was my father. A man answered the phone and said, hello, how are you? And I said, my name is Grant Ringuet. I told him my birth date, and the next thing he said was, what do you want?
Oh, boy.
Yeah, and I said, I don't want anything. And that's when I knew that he was my father, when he said that.
Yeah, that's right. That's kind of a confirmation, isn't it?
Yeah, kind of.
Now, was he married to your mother at this point?
Yeah, they had been together all their life.
And why did they give you up?
He told me that he spoke German, and they had a bad look on people who spoke German.
Oh, I see. So he was having economic troubles at the time.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so you spent one day with them, and how did that go?
After I talked to my father and he hung up on me, later I called back, and I called back the same number, and it was my mother. And when she heard my voice, she started crying. She said, I've been waiting for 2 weeks for you to call me back.
She was afraid maybe she'd lost you again.
Back again.
Yeah.
As it turned out, a couple days went by, but I guess she had talked to my sister, who I didn't even know existed, And my sister called me and said, hey, can you come to Chicago? I'd like to meet you, and I'll take you to our parents, and we can talk about things. So I went to Chicago. I spent the night with my sister. We talked a lot that night, and then I went and met my parents that next day.
And so how'd that affect you to meet them?
Well, it was a shock. I mean, I kind of filled the hole, but needed to fill it more.
It wasn't what you'd hoped, right?
No, it never is.
Yeah.
Never is. But I'm glad I did it.
But there was a bigger shock that you discovered as you got into this.
Yeah, absolutely. My father told me that he was a POW in the United States.
From Germany during World War II.
Right. And I didn't think much about it. And, okay, whatever. And then talked to them, found out what I wanted to know. I felt like I filled the hole. We're going on to about 20 years later, and I started thinking about it. I wanted to do some research. So I sent some letters out. I sent one to the National Archives in Berlin. I sent one to the International Red Cross. I got his actual POW number and found out that he was in the Luftwaffe. He had gone to a flight school in northern Holland in 1943, well, actually 1940, and ended up serving in Italy and then in Tunisia.
Wow, that's quite a record.
Yeah.
But the Luftwaffe thing, that's problematic, isn't it?
Yeah, actually it was formed in 1936 by Hermann Goering. So I believe he was a Nazi.
So your birth father was a Nazi?
I'm 90% sure. And I can quote from this. He was in the Luftwaffe Jager Regiment Brethren, hastily formed from diverse elements, airborne engineer troops for employment in Tunisia following the Allied landings in Morocco and Algeria.
And so when did you discover this, Grant?
I did a lot of research. After there's a archive in Berlin called WAS, and their records were limited on my father, but they gave me his regiment and his battalion and his rank and where he was captured. He actually was captured in Fort Lauderdale in Tunisia.
How did that affect you to get that news?
I was shocked. I was overwhelmed.
You'd known for 20-some-odd years that he'd been in the German military during World War II, as virtually all males had to be at that time. But
yeah, he actually, we had some intimate discussions, and he told me that the truck came by his mother's home and pretty much, took him away and said, "You're in the German army."
So do you feel he was actually a party member, or are you just feeling that he was kind of forced into service, which was dominated by the party?
I think the later. I know that he was in Tunisia. The British cut off their supply lines. They ended up at Fort Lauderdale, which is had nowhere to go. The Mediterranean was north, and the British cut off all their supply lines. They had no ammunition, no fuels, so they gave up.
What would you say to people who are in your situation? They have that curiosity, that natural desire to know where their bloodline came from. And you went through that door. You know, as we say sometimes, you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube once you know. Would you rather you'd never found out, or has this strengthened your ties with your adoptive family? What's been the effect on your life?
Oh, no, I'm very happy with what I did. I love history, and this was, I actually got a hold of the International Red Cross. Who sent me a couple of his POW cards. I have these. I have 2 assertions of these.
And he had filled them out?
I have his writing here. Yeah, he filled them out. They're from 1943.
And, I always maintain that autographs and things like this, they're time capsules from that moment. What an incredible thing to have.
Absolutely.
And so all this has kind of been a lovely education for you, something you just don't get from a school book.
No, not at all. I did find my paternal grandfather, grandmother, my maternal grandmother and grandfather. I can't find a whole lot more because I believe the war, there was so much destruction.
Sure.
That, it was pretty much decimated.
A lot of the records lost. Well, Grant, an amazing story, and I so appreciate you reaching out to us to share it. I'm delighted with all the success you had in finding him and his records and how it's kind of filled a hole in your life and also strengthened your ties with your adoptive family.
It has, and I'd like to thank my mother, my adopted mother, who they didn't have a problem with me finding my natural family. And I can't say enough for her.
That's a great story. Thank you so much, Grant.
You're very welcome.
And coming up next, we'll talk preservation with our preservation authority, Tom Perry from tmcplace.com. What is authoring? And why does it matter to you in family history? Tom will explain the whole thing coming up for you next in 3 minutes on Extreme Genes and extremegenes.com.
You know, everybody needs a place of their own to plant their family tree, preferably one that no one else can mess with and only you can control. That perfect place is Roots Magic. Roots Magic has been a family history standard for years, and now Roots Magic 7 is on the market. It's an award-winning genealogical software program which makes researching, organizing, and sharing your family history easy. You can start from scratch or import data from other software, or even Family Search. Roots Magic also automatically finds records relating to your ancestors from MyHeritage, Family Search, and soon Ancestry and Find My Past. You can use it to create beautiful charts, reports, and books. And have you ever thought about making your own family history website? Roots Magic can make that happen too. And of course, there are free videos, guides, and technical support to help you along. Isn't it about time you planted your family tree? Whether you're a beginning genie or experienced professional, Roots Magic is the perfect tool for you.
When someone asks, what is Forever.com, I tell them it's a new kind of digital storage, like for your photos and documents and all the family memories. And they always shoot back with, well, that's not a very new thing. There's Facebook, Shutterfly, Flickr. Then I say, oh, but on Forever, you own all your content. There's no third-party ads, and it's guaranteed for your lifetime, plus 100 years. Do the others do that? Okay, so like I said, Forever.com, a new kind of digital storage. You are the chief memory officer of your family. You get that frantic phone call about the reunion in 2 days and they need the slideshow, and you're ready because you use Forever.com. Photos, news clippings, heck, you automatically upload the photos on your cell phone every day. You have everything digitally stored and organized where you can share it privately with your friends and family. No ads, and it's permanent, guaranteed for generations. Yes, you are the chief memory officer, and you have Forever.com.
Did you know that Family Search Family Tree is available through a powerful new mobile app experience? That's right. Now you can view, edit, and even add information to ancestors in your family tree whenever and wherever you are. You no longer need to wait to get home or make a date with your computer to view or update your family tree. You can add details to your tree when visiting with family or when capturing details from a trip to the cemetery. You can share new family history discoveries from classroom settings. You can even make the most of your time when waiting for doctor appointments or car repairs. Get started today by downloading the free Family Search Family Tree app to your Apple or Android device. Visit familysearch.org/tree app to get the Family Tree app for free. Exploring and expanding your family tree has never been more convenient. Visit familysearch.org/tree app to download the Family Search Family Tree mobile app today.
And welcome back to America's Family History Show, Extreme Genes and extremegenes.com. Fisher here, the Radio Root Sleuth with Tom Perry from tmcplace.com. And it is preservation time, where we talk about how you preserve your precious heirlooms, and you want to make sure that they last for generations. Welcome back, Tom. Good to see you.
Awesome to be here.
I hate to start with complaints, but I have an email from Port Richey, Florida. Amy's asking, Tom, you teased us a few weeks ago about the software that's supposed to help us with editing video and home movies and whatever, and you have not spoken of it since. What's happening?
Well, the other episode must have got canceled or something. Must have got sidelined. I apologize for that.
It was awful. I mean, you teased us a couple of weeks ago. You gave us all this rundown about it. Then you wouldn't name it.
Exactly.
So I think it's about time you came out with this for Amy's sake.
This software, Amy, is absolutely wonderful. Every single one of my texts, it's become their favorite software. It's called Wondershare Video Converter Ultimate, and it's version 8.6.0. And it is absolutely amazing what it does. The arrows in your quiver, so to speak, that it offers to you are incredible. It edits MP3s, M4As, WAVs, M4Rs, AIFs, APEs, do-re-mi's, XYZ's. It does everything. I mean, every kind of audio and video you can imagine, this one does. This is the greatest software I have ever come upon that is so integrated within itself. So many times you get a software for this, a different software for that, a different software for this to make things work. We have always had the problem over the last year about Cinematize going away.
Yes.
This will actually take DVDs and convert them as well.
So what are you saying here?
You don't need to worry about finding Cinematize, finding an old version anymore. It actually does the DVD conversion too. I mean, it's amazing what this does. We have people calling us all the time and says, hey, there's a YouTube video I need downloaded, or they put something on our corporate website and I need this video so I can put it on my iPhone. And people call us and we try to do it for them. This software will do it so you can do it yourself.
That's incredible. And how much is it?
It's about $50. It's pretty inexpensive.
Wow.
And as long as you have the right OS that will work with this, you're fine. And most of the newer Mac and Windows will work, seamlessly with this program. We have some computers, some of our Macs that are still on Snow Leopard, which is like, years ago. However, we have to use it because some software that's been discontinued will only work on Snow Leopard. So we called the guy and he says, oh, you really should have, the next one up. And he actually gave us some workarounds and we were able to work it on our Snow Leopard computers as well as our, big ones that have all the new current stuff on them. So basically it'll work on our Snow Leopard, which is the old one. And then the new ones that are coming up right now, it'll work on them as well. So it's great. And it's nice to have a place where you can call the people or email them and they get back to you really, really fast. And this isn't some small new software that only a few people are using. They have already had over 23,000 downloads of this software.
Wow.
So, people are loving it. It's got over 4-star ratings. It's just absolutely incredible. Now, some of the neatest things that you can do with this is, like I mentioned, you can download video from online sites. So if there's something you need, if you're teaching a class and you want to show a video in your class to show you something off of YouTube or whatever, and you have a closed system where you can't, get on the internet because of viruses, you can actually download this, put it on a disk, and play it in your class, or you can put it on your laptop or whatever to hook up to your LCD projectors. It makes it really, really convenient. And the neat thing, if you want to do just the opposite, you can have a video that you create and you can actually stream with this software any way you want. On the internet, you can stream it to your own pages. You can stream it to YouTube, anything you want to do. One thing that's really, really cool about this software, which is very, very rare, most softwares, when you buy them, you do your editing, but you can't do DVD authoring. You can do DVD authoring with this also, and after the break, we'll go into a little bit more detail about DVD authoring.
All right, sounds good. A little education going here. Coming up in 3 minutes on Extreme Genes, America's Family History Show.
Looking for an easy way to show off your family history and share it with your family? Family Chartmasters offers beautiful custom pedigree art pieces and inexpensive family reunion draft charts in any design or size that fits your needs. With a free consultation at FamilyChartmasters.com, you can get started creating a new family masterpiece. Family Chartmasters has over 11 years of experience in creating and printing family charts. They can print any style of genealogy chart from any genealogy file and can create exactly what you're looking for. You'll work with a specialized and talented consultant whose goal is to make you happy. Decorative charts make fantastic gifts for all occasions. And with Family Chartmasters' option of ordering duplicate charts at half price along with your original purchase at full price, you can afford to give a family heirloom to each member of your family. Contact Family Chartmasters today at FamilyChartmasters.com for your free consultation. Family Chartmasters will give the greatest care to your family history.
When was the last time you heard your grandmother's voice or saw your family enjoying life back in the 1950s or 60s? If the reason is you haven't known what to do with your old recordings, videos, and films, here's your answer. The Multimedia Center in Salt Lake City.
We brought in a video project to the Multimedia Center, and overnight they duplicated it to DVD so we could meet our deadline.
The Multimedia Center, 2870 East, 3300 South, Salt Lake City. Open Monday through Friday, 10 to 6. Call 801-483-1717 or go to transferduplication.com. 23andme.com.
Extreme Genes is sponsored in part by 23andme.com, a personalized genetic service that helps you understand what your 23 pairs of chromosomes, your DNA, say about you. 23andme.com gives you a snapshot view of your DNA with more than 60 detailed reports on your health, traits, and ancestry, plus tools to explore and compare your DNA with family and friends. 23andme.com is the first and only genetic service available directly to you that includes reports that meet FDA standards. Here's how it works. Order your DNA kit from 23andme.com. Provide your saliva sample from home and mail it back to a CLIA-certified lab. Then you'll be notified when your reports are ready online. You'll also receive ongoing reports as new genetic discoveries are made and as 23andme.com is able to clear new reports through the FDA. See why more than 1 million people are experiencing their genetics with 23andme.com. Order your DNA kit today at 23andme.com.
And we are back for our final segment of Extreme Genes for this week, America's Family History Show and ExtremeGenes.com. Fisher here, the Radio Root Sleuth. That's Tom Perry from TMCPlace.com. He is our preservation authority. And Tom, we were just talking about this incredible video editing software that's available so inexpensively now that you've been reviewing. And you talked about authoring. Now, for the unindoctrinated, talk about what authoring is.
You know, authoring is really, really important. In fact, most people that are even into editing a lot don't understand authoring. And it's a very, very important feature. No matter what software you want to use, you want to make sure it has a good authoring. Because if you go in and make these wonderful edits and you do this beautiful presentation that runs on your computer, now what do? How do you get it out to people? Yeah, you can always do MP4s. You can do streaming. You can do these different things. But some people, you know, like Aunt Martha, all she has is a DVD player. And, you know, she just barely upgraded from her VHS a few years ago. So you need to send her a disc. So that's what authoring does. You go and take this content that you have and you put it on a disc that the computer will understand. So what you do with DVD authoring, you go in and say, okay, here's my content. Here's the most important part that I've got. Now I want to put an opening title that when they first pop the disc in, they'll come and say, you know, Smith Family Films or Smith's Trip to Europe or whatever you want it to say. But then your DVD might be 2 hours long. And most people don't want to sit down and watch, 2 hours of something. They might say, oh, yeah, I remember, when we were in Venice, I want to go and look at that part again. So what you do is you put these little buttons, just like on any kind of DVD that you'd buy that's a professional movie. You can go to different scene selections. It's the same thing, but you say, okay, here's when we were in Florence. Here's where we were in Italy.
It's a table of contents.
Exactly. That's the best way. It's like opening up a book, a cookbook, and you don't need a cookbook from front to back. If you're making a cake, you go to the cake section. So that's exactly what this is. You want to check out the European trip, so you go down to click on where it says Europe, and then there could be another drop-down menu that says Venice and Switzerland and Italy and all these kind of things. So it tells you where to go. So that makes it really, really nice. And with this kind, you can also go in and add music when you're doing your DVD authoring. You can go in and add narration, whatever you want to do. So basically what you are creating, you're creating the brain that runs your program. Like we have people all the time that have Macs, and I'm a Mac guy, as everybody knows, and they go in and create something in iMovie. They burn it to a disk and say, hey, I made this really cool thing in iMovie, and it plays great on my computer. I burn it to a disk, and I pop it into any other computer or into my DVD player, and it says bad disk. That's because it's not an O'Reilly disk like your bad dog. It means the disk can't be read. It doesn't know what to do with it.
Right.
So what you do, if you're a Mac guy, you create an iMovie, then you export it into iDVD, and iDVD is where you do your authoring, where a lot of people don't understand how that the two are related.
So how do people master this?
It's not really that hard. If you go into Wondershare, it'll kind of give you step-by-step ways to do these things, go in and author them. There's a lot of YouTube videos that you can go and download that will give you instructions of how to do basic DVD authoring, because it's pretty much same across the platform. If you're trying to learn French, there's a lot of different ways you can learn French, but the basics are always going to be the same. Wondershare Video Converter Ultimate is 8.6.0, and it's great. It's got 4 stars. It allows you to download the software itself. Then you can edit your MP3s, your MP4s, WAV files, AIFFs, like we talked about, Do, Re, Mi's, XYZs. It'll do anything. It'll let you stream stuff to YouTube. It'll let you stream stuff to your own website. And most importantly, it has built-in DVD authoring features.
All right. That is great advice, Tom, and it's exciting news. Thanks for coming on.
You bet. Great to be here.
Hey, that wraps up our show for this week. Thanks once again to Katie Barnes from LegacyTree.com for coming on and talking about land and court records, where to find them, what you're going to find in them, and that great story from the South back in the 1820s. Also to Grant Ringwet for sharing with us the story of how he found his birth father and the incredible military story that went with him. If you missed any of it, catch the podcast. And of course, the shows are now searchable too. Thanks for listening. Talk to you next week. And remember, as far as everyone knows, we're a nice, normal family.